Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are and whatever the time. Happy Monday. Thank you for being here. Welcome to today's virtual reading celebration, where we'll be celebrating the importance of reading for pleasure, exploring creativity, and growing our imaginations. We're excited to kick off the week with you all. Thank you again for being here. Let me start off with a quick introduction. My name is Nina Silverstein, and I work at First Book. And prior to joining First Book, I taught kindergarten and first grade in Baltimore City. Hi to all of my Baltimore friends out there. It's my great pleasure to work with our amazing partners at Penguin Random House, who, thanks to their generous support, have brought us all together today. We are celebrating 25 years of incredible and impactful partnership with Penguin Random House. And during this time, Penguin Random House has donated over 42 million books to children who need them most across the U.S. through First Book. That's just incredible. A few quick housekeeping items before we begin. Please feel free to ask and enter any questions into the Q&A tab of the chat box throughout the presentation, and we'll turn to those later for the Q&A portion. Also, please note, if you need to, you can adjust the video screen size to make it bigger on your end. Without any further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's guest of honor and friend of First Book, Mary Pope Osborne. Mary Pope Osborne is the author of many award-winning children's books, including retelling of mythology and folklore, picture books, biographies, mysteries, young adult novels, and the #1 New York Times best-selling Magic Treehouse series. An international phenomenon, the series has sold over 140 million books and has been translated into 35 languages. Mary has traveled extensively in the U.S. and abroad, visiting schools and speaking on issues related to children's literacy. In 2015, Mary formed the MTH Classroom Adventure Program, a free-of-charge extensive program for teachers to help bring the joy of reading into their classrooms. In collaboration with First Book, she has donated over 1 million books to children. Please give a virtual round of applause and welcome to Mary Pope Osborne.
Hi everyone. I'm so glad to be with you today, and so glad you could join us for the celebration between First Book and Penguin Random House Books for Children. We have been working together for many years, and the intention that we all have is to get kids reading and to love reading, to become lifelong readers. It's so important for your imagination and your ability to take in knowledge and to know about our world. And that's why I started writing Magic Treehouse many years ago, actually maybe 34 years ago. And as soon as I started writing the books, I fell in love with getting kids to cross the bridge into reading adventure stories with Jack and Annie and traveling in the Magic Treehouse. Now, recently, the Magic Treehouse books that I've been working on are all about saving animals. And Jack and Annie go to different parts of the world and help save different creatures. Now, the first one in that quartet, often I do the books in sets of 4 of the same overarching theme. In this one, they go to Africa and they help save rhinos, and it's called Rhinos at Recess. And then I decided to go to the Galapagos Islands and save giant tortoises from a volcano that they land on an island and they find out there's a volcano, and they help the Ecuadorian army rescue the tortoises. And it's based on a real event. And then I chose to write about wild horses. And this is based on a real event too. In about 1992, all the little wild horses in Mongolia, which is on the other side of the world from the United States, in Mongolia, these horses had become extinct. But then in 1992, they decided to bring them back. And the way they were going to bring them back is to ship them from a few places they were left in the world, which were zoos. And they flew them back to Mongolia, and they shipped them to a reserve just for the horses. It would be a natural land with rivers where they could drink water and grass they could eat, and they would have a new life like they had long ago in Mongolia. Over 100,000 years ago, they wandered these plains. No human can really tame them or ride them because they're special kind of wild horse. They're smaller than real horses. And I'm telling you all this because I want to read to you some of the adventure that Jack and Annie have with the little wild horses. So the name of the book, as I said, is Windy Night with Wild Horses. And I'm going to give you a little background. When they arrive, they discover they've come on this magical day, and they're at a big ceremony where everyone is welcoming the horses, and they put them inside a corral. Well, they'll be safe until they can get them used to the open plains, right? Because on the plains, there's some things to be scared of, like wolves. That would be the number one predator of animals like these little horses. So before they get smart, know where they are and how to eat and how to drink in the wild, remember they've always been in zoos, they put the horses in a corral. And Jack and Annie are having a wonderful time watching that. And Jack leaves with Annie, and he leaves his backpack in the corral. So he runs back to get it, and that's fine. And then they go to a party to celebrate the horses. Well, somebody comes into the party and says, "Oh no, some horses have gotten out of the corral. Someone left the gate open." Well, Jack nearly has a heart attack. He realizes that he may have been the last person in the corral when he went back for his backpack. He's so upset. He doesn't know what to do. He's afraid the horses will get into danger. So he and Annie creep back. It's in the dark now, to the plain to find the wild horses. And they are riding motorbikes. I gave them electric bikes, but they're kind of like mountain motorbikes to ride around the area that they're in. So they jump on their motorbikes, and that's what you see on the cover. If you look closely, you'll see them on their motorbikes, okay? So they're heading out in the moonlight, and this is what, and they have a rhyme to help them. Information from Morgan. If you know the books, you know she gives them lots of help on their journeys. Okay, let's start with Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out the paper. He handed it to Annie. She looked at Morgan's rhyme for a long time. "I think I know what to do," she said. "Listen. The wind on the plain spins wheels along." "Spins wheels," she said to Jack. "Get it?" "What wheels?" said Jack. "Bicycle wheels. Spin bicycle wheels." "What?" said Jack. "The mountain bikes at the reserve," said Annie. "They're for the eco volunteers. Let's get on the mountain bikes." So Jack and Annie run, 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 run. They get to the mountain bikes. They get on the mountain bikes, and then they're ready to get across the plain. They don't know where they're going, and they don't know where the horses are. "Whoa," said Annie. "These bikes are serious. Lots heavier than our bikes at home." "Yep, and the tires are bigger and tougher. Can you handle it?" said Jack. "No problem," said Annie. Jack looked beyond the corral to the huge open plain of the nature reserve. "A full moon helps," he said, "but now we need to check the rhyme and make a plan." Annie pulled out their rhyme again. "The wind on the plain spins wheels along." She looked at Jack. "So maybe we just ride where the wind blows us." "We could try it. Then what?" said Jack. Annie read more of the rhyme. "Call out to the night, spin air into song. Use your own words, try to do your best. Sing of wild things, let the wind do the rest." "Okay, that's our plan," said Annie. She put the rhyme back into her pocket. Wait, what's our plan?" said Jack. "Spin air into song, make up the words. The wind does the rest," said Annie. "That's a plan?" said Jack. "That's not a plan." "It's the only one we've got," said Annie. "Trust the rhyme." She started riding toward the open prairie. Jack gripped his handlebars. He started pumping the bike wheels. Jack soon caught up with Annie. The wheels of their bikes were spinning together as they bumped over rough ground. Jack felt confident on the mountain bike. He knew how to shift his weight. He knew when to bend his legs and elbows. He knew when to lean back, lean forward, and shift gears. After Jack and Annie passed the corral, the wind picked up. A strong gust seemed to shove their bikes forward. They started zooming over the vast nature reserve. The mountain bikes swished through dry grass. The thick rubber tires bounced easily over the ruts and small rocks. Jack loved the feeling of the strong wind at his back. "Look for the horses!" cried Annie. "I'm looking," said Jack. Jack peered into the distance ahead. As the wind pushed their bikes farther and farther across the plain, he saw three dark shapes at the base of a hill. "I think I see them," said Jack. And there you see Jack and Annie racing in their mountain bikes across the plain just before Jack sees the lost horses. "Me too," called Annie. "Near the hill." "Yes," cried Jack. The horses are called Taki. So when I speak of the Taki, I'm speaking of the little wild horses. The missing Taki were grazing peacefully in the silver moonlight. "Stop! Stop for a minute!" Jack shouted. "Now's the time to make a real plan." Jack pulled on his brake levers, but his bike wouldn't stop. The wheels kept spinning. The wind kept sweeping his bike forward. "Something's wrong with my brakes. I can't stop!" yelled Annie. "Me neither!" shouted Jack. "Don't worry," said Annie. "The rhyme says the wind on the plain spins wheels along." "Right," said Jack. "Just go with it," said Annie. "Right," said Jack. With the wind sweeping them along, Jack and Annie raced full speed ahead. "Look! Above the horses, on the hillside!" shouted Annie. In the silver moonlight, Jack saw 5 dark shapes on the slope of the hill. Then he heard it. "Ooh!" He knew what the shapes were, but Annie said it first. "Wolves!" she cried. A howl came again from the hillside, then another howl, and another, until there was a chorus of howls. "Oh no! The wolves are after the horses!" cried Annie. Before Jack could think, everything happened at once. The 3 Taki started galloping away from the wolves. They were heading toward Jack and Annie. Their hoofs pounded against the ground. The howling noises grew louder. More wolves moved down the slope of the hill. The wolves scrambled onto the plain. They started chasing after the horses. The Taki kept running toward Jack and Annie. "Now's the time!" shouted Annie. "We have to sing." "Sing what? How?" called Jack. "Just sing. That's what the rhyme says. Sing of wild things. Let the wind do the rest. Spin air into song." She stood up on her bike pedals and held her head high. Annie sang to the tune of the wheels on the bus. She sang as loud as she could. "The horses on the plain are running and running. The horses on the plain are running back home." It wasn't a good song, but Annie kept singing. Jack stood on his pedals. He made up words to the same tune. "The wind on the plain is blowing and blowing. The wind on the plain is blowing them home." Together, Jack and Annie sang as loud as they could. They bellowed the words of their song over and over. Suddenly, the wind seemed to capture their voices and fill the night with their song. Strange whistling and low rumblings began to shake the earth. All the sounds blended together perfectly, and then the wind spun the song into a swirling column of air. The whirlwind swirled over the grass, growing bigger and bigger until out of it swirled a beautiful white stallion leapt forward. "Wow!" shouted Annie. "See that?" "Yes!" Jack yelled, though he could hardly believe his eyes. The magnificent horse had a long neck and a flowing mane. The horse raced toward the Taki. This is a great picture of this horse racing toward the other horses, the little horses on the plain. The wind shifted direction, and the mountain bikes swerved to the left. With the rushing wind pushing them across the plain, Jack and Annie raced after the white horse. The huge stallion halted before the oncoming Taki. The wind horse went back on his rear legs. He sighed loudly, as if commanding the smaller horses to follow. Then the stallion started back toward the entrance of the nature reserve. The 3 Taki galloped after him. Jack and Annie's bikes swerved again and sped after the horses. Jack could hear the wolves howling behind them. The beautiful white horse galloped over the silver sea of moonlit grass. The talkie galloped behind him. The mountain bikes zoomed faster. The wolves couldn't keep up. The sounds of their howls grew fainter as they fell farther behind. Finally, they faded away completely. Soon the wind and the thumping of horse hoofs could be all that was heard. Nearing the fenced area, the white stallion and the talkie slowed to a trot. The wind fell to a whisper. Jack and Annie's bikes coasted to a stop. From inside the corral came the sound of neighing. "Jack, let them in!" Annie shouted. Jack jumped off his bike and hurried to the gate. The gate was tied shut with a thin rope. Jack untied the rope. He threw open the gate. The three talkie trotted into the corral. They galloped off to join their herd. Jack closed the gate firmly. He tied the knot tightly. "Done!" he shouted. He nearly collapsed with relief. "Phew! Good work!" said Annie. Jack looked around for the mysterious white stallion. "Where is he?" he asked. "I don't know," said Annie. "He was here, then he wasn't here." "Where did he come from?" asked Jack. "The wind, maybe," said Annie. "But how did he just disappear?" said Jack. "Maybe, I don't know. The wind made him," said Annie. "And now the wind's disappeared. So—" For the first time, Jack realized the wind had stopped completely. There wasn't a breeze or even a whisper. The night was still, except for insects chirping in the grass and soft snuffling sounds in the horse corral. Jack took a deep breath. "We'll figure it out later," he said. "We'd better go back to the yurt before Tuya's family gets worried about us." "Right," said Annie. Jack and Annie returned their mountain bikes to the bike rack. Then, by the light of the moon, they started back toward the nomad camp. Jack was so tired he could hardly put one foot in front of the other. When they reached the camp, everything was quiet. They headed to Tuya's house, opened the red door, and slipped inside. All the candles had nearly burnt out. Tuya's family had gone to bed. In the dim light, Jack and Annie lay down on the two low couches. They covered themselves with sheepskin. "Night," said Annie. "Night," breathed Jack, closing his eyes. He heard the crackle of the fire in the stove. The wind was gone. The wolves were gone. On the first night of their new lives, all the wild horses were safely back home. And then they wake up the next day and they'll find out sort of what happened. "Wake up!" Jack opened his eyes. For a moment he had no idea where he was. "Hi," said Annie. She was sitting on the couch near him. "I think Tuya and her family are outside." "Oh, okay." Jack sat up. "Hey, our ride last night on the plane. I don't know. Unbelievable." "Yeah, but it was all spelled out in Morgan's rhyme," said Annie. "Right, it was," said Jack. Just then Tuya's mother came into the yurt. "Ah, you're awake," Batu said, smiling. "Good morning, Jack and Annie." "Good morning," they answered. "When we woke up at dawn, we were so happy to find you here," said Batu. "Tuya thought perhaps you had decided to stay with the other Echo volunteers. Where did you go last night?" "Oh, we just took a walk by the light of the full moon," said Annie. "It was a beautiful night," said Batu. "Khan is here now to take you back to the city, and he brought very good news. But first, you must have something to eat." "Thank you," said Annie. She and Jack stood up from the low couches and sat at a table near the stove. Batu gave them bowls of tea and slabs of crusty homemade bread with butter. "So what's Khan's news?" asked Jack. "It is wonderful," said Batu. "When the sun came up, he discovered all the taki were safe in the corral. He thinks he made a mistake last night when he counted them." Annie smiled at Jack. For a quick moment, he wondered if they should tell Batu that they had found the horses. But then, how could they explain their bike wheels spinning over the plain and the white horse whirring out of the wind to lead the taki back home? Annie seemed to share his thoughts. "I'm glad they were never missing," she said. "Yes, what a relief," said Jack. He took a big bite of the crunchy bread. "Does anyone know who left the gate open?" asked Annie. "Oh, no one is to blame," said Batu. "The latch on the gate had broken. Khan discovered it when he went to check on the taki last night. He used a rope to tie the gate shut, but then he made a mistake when he counted the horses inside the corral. Oh, so it wasn't. Jack stopped before he said, me. Annie laughed and looked at him. I'm glad no one was to blame, she said. Aren't you? Very glad, said Jack. Is the latch fixed now? He asked Batu. No, but for now the rope is keeping all the taki safe inside, said Batu. Khan will buy a new latch when he takes you to the city. Come now, he is waiting. Jack and Annie stood up from the table. Jack grabbed the tote bag. Then he and Annie followed Batu outside. It was a beautiful morning in the nomad camp. The sunlight was bright, the air was crisp, but it wasn't too windy. Tuya's little brother was using a baby bottle to feed one of the lambs. Her big brother was chopping wood. Her dad was training a golden eagle perched on his wrist. The eagle stared at Jack and Annie. Jack smiled at it. That's the same one, he whispered to Annie. I know, she said softly. An eagle had led them to the treehouse at the beginning of the story in Frog Creek. Jack studied the family's large herd of horses. He saw brown ones, black ones, gray ones, and rust-colored ones, but there wasn't even one white horse. Yeah. Where's Tuya? Annie asked Batu. She's waiting in the minibus with Khan. She wants to ride with you to the city. Oh, good, said Jack. Thank you for everything. You are a very good host, said Annie. Batu laughed. And you are very interesting guests, she said. Goodbye. Goodbye, said Jack and Annie together. Then they hurried down the row of yurts to the minibus. All aboard, said Khan. Thanks, said Jack. When they climbed into the bus, they saw Tuya in the back. They moved to the last seat and sat next to her. I'm glad you're riding with us, said Annie. Me too, said Tuya. Khan started the loud engine. The minibus began bouncing over the dirt road. What happened to you last night? Tuya asked. We went to the nature reserve, said Annie. What did you do there? Said Tuya. Oh, we just... Jack paused. Annie poked him. She nodded. Jack could tell she wanted them to tell Tuya what really happened. Okay, here's the true story, he said. We borrowed 2 mountain bikes, and we rode off in search of the missing Taki, said Annie. Tuya's eyes grew huge. But Khan told us today they were never missing, she said. Well, actually they were, said Annie. We saw 3 of them grazing on the plain. No, breathed Tuya. And we saw wolves come down from the hills, said Annie. No, said Tuya. She covered her mouth with her hand. Yes, said Jack. We started singing a magic song. The wind took over our song, and then he paused. Tuya's eyes were wide with wonder. Then what? She whispered. The wind whistled and roared and spun into a whirlwind, said Jack. Then out of the wind a mysterious white horse appeared, said Annie. He was beautiful. He had a really long mane. No, said Tuya. Yes, said Jack and Annie. Ah, said Tuya. She clapped her hands. It's true, said Annie. The horse led the Taki across the plain. They outran the wolves. They galloped back to the corral, said Jack, and we shut them inside. What happened to the mystery horse? Tuya asked. He disappeared, said Annie. Vanished. We don't know where he came from or where he went, said Jack. Oh, maybe he was the wind horse, Tuya said in a hushed voice. The wind horse? Asked Jack. In the old stories, the wind horse is a sacred animal, said Tuya. He has the strength and courage of a horse and the speed of the wind. That sounds like him, said Annie. He saved the Taki. Tuya nodded. When he appears, he is a sign of good fortune. I know now the Taki will have a great future here. They will live long lives in their natural home. And zoos will send more of them back here to Mongolia? Annie asked. Oh, yes, said Tuya. We thank the zoos for keeping them safe all these years and for helping us bring them home. I have a question, said Jack. In the Taki's natural home, wolves can prey on them. So is it really better for them to leave the safety of the zoos? Yes, it is, said Tuya. Last night my father explained it to me. He said the price for living a natural life in the wild can be danger, but on the Mongolian plain, the Taki can run as freely as they want. They can find fresh water in flowing streams. They can rest in the shade of the hilltop forests. So the story goes on a little bit from there, but that's the crucial thing is that Jack and Annie helped the little horses be safe on the plains of Mongolia. Now, in the next book, in that set of four, Jack and Annie go to Monterey, California, to where they have a great adventure with sea otters. Now, kids and adults are not allowed to touch sea otters. They're not allowed to even swim close to them because the people protecting the sea otters don't want them to get too close to humans. They want them to be in the wild. And sometimes, if they get injured, the people at the Monterey Bay Aquarium will rescue the otters, but they're very careful not to humanize them, not to make them pets. Well, Jack and Annie know this. They know this is a cardinal rule on the Monterey Bay. You don't mess with the sea otters. So how do they end up on the cover with two sea otters? That's the sort of the adventure of the book. And I think we can forgive them because they actually saved the life of this mother and her baby. But they go to Monterey and they get on a fishing boat and they have to go scuba diving. And they go down under the sea. They learn it magically, of course, how to do that in an instant. And then they have their adventure with the sea otters. But I had a great time writing this, just as I had a great time writing this about the little horses, and a great time with the giant turtles, and a great time with the big rhinos in Africa. I love what I do. I have so much fun. Maybe you can tell that I have a good time because I love writing the stories, researching the stories, and then sharing the stories with my readers. So I think now we're going to probably open up the floor for some questions. If you have things you want to ask me, you were to write them down in the chat, and Nina will ask me the questions.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary. It was such a joy to listen and hear you read the tales of the adventures of Jack and Annie, and it's just so exciting. I think I can speak for everyone on the presentation today, and I think the 5 pages of questions that we have that I've been furiously sorting through on the back end here speak for themselves of just how engaged everyone was. So incredible. Thank you to the audience members for submitting your questions. Thank you for all the students who I'm sure were raising your hands and asking your teachers to submit on your behalf. So we'll do our best to get through as many as we can. And I'd like to start off with the question from Hoover Elementary School in Oakland, California. The second grade book club is wondering, why did you decide to start writing Magic Treehouse, Mary? They said they're reading Magic Treehouse and they love your series. And this question is from, and sorry if I mispronounce any words, it's from Bawi, Nova, Arjwan, Edinson, Kai, Miriam, Tamari, Jaden, and Jacob. So their second grade book club would like to know, why did you decide to start writing Magic Treehouse?
Well, first, I love that you have a book club, and it's just the most wonderful thing in the world. Um, we didn't have book clubs when I was little. We didn't write stories. We read books. We got them out of the library and we read them and we loved them. What we did have was our imaginations. And I'm talking about my two brothers and I, my twin brother and a brother a year younger. And the three of us, we traveled all the time. I'm getting to answer your question the long way. And what we did everywhere we were is play. And when we played, we invented other worlds and we pretended we could do anything. We were in the military. Our dad moved us all around the world, but we had each other, and wherever we moved to, um, we made it a playground for ourselves. We climbed trees, and we had a picnic table. We pretended it was a ship, and it could go around the world, and we were always using our imaginations in that way. So when Random House suggested I write a series. I wanted to go back to playing and inventing things and being with my brothers. So I chose Jack and Annie as a brother and sister. And we never had a tree house, but we always wanted one. And I'll tell you in a minute. I'm sure someone will ask me, how did we come up with the treehouse? That's a different question. But but what I did was find a way to play again. And that's why I love it so much. And every story is different for me as well as you, because we go to a different place in the treehouse. So I get bored quickly, but I'm never bored coming up with a new adventure for Jack and Annie. Thank you.
Amazing. And I think you all just answered Miss Flores's class's question too. Did you have a treehouse growing up? So now we know
No,
the answer.
no, but I will tell you now how I came up with the treehouse for Jack and Annie. I was trying to get them back in time. I knew I wanted to do time travel. So I tried first a magic cellar with magic whistles in the cellar. Now, I have no idea how any of that worked, but I actually did a rough draft of that. I could tell it wasn't going to work. Then I tried a magic museum where Jack and Annie go into the museum and they pick up something, and the strange lady who runs the museum casts a spell on them, and they go back to the place where the artifact they pick up comes from, like a bowl or a piece of jewelry from another time. No, that did not work. I tried a magic artist studio where they step into the studio in the woods. They don't know where it came from, but they can go to the paintings in the studio. You never read that book either, because I never finished it and it wasn't going to work. And believe me, tried 7 different ways to get kids back in time. And I thought maybe I'll stop trying and I'll just go back to my other writing. I liked it a lot too. I had done a lot of books before Magic Treehouse. And then Will and we had a cabin in Pennsylvania outside New York City where we lived. Will is my husband, and we took a walk and we saw a treehouse in the woods. And I had no idea this would be such an important day in my life. But we looked at the treehouse, and both of us said, I wish we'd had one of those when we were little kids. And then one of us, I don't even know, because we both think creatively together a lot, said, well, what if you put the kids in a magic treehouse and you take it back in time? Well, how are you going to do that? What's going to be in the treehouse? What's the magic? And then by evening, we figured out books, a stack of books, because we're big readers. And we love every time you open a book, you go somewhere else in your mind and have an adventure. So that's it. The simplest ideas can be the hardest to find. That's the moral of the story.
Incredible. Oh, another moral is that inspiration is all around. Just walking in the woods and happen to see a
And
tree house, and
you
here
never
we
know.
are.
Be careful.
That's incredible. Thank you. Another question, and now we're up to 15 pages of Q&A questions. So
Oh,
I'm
no.
doing my best to round them all up, but it's been asked many times by many audience members. When did you become an author? How did you become an author, and why did you become an author? What inspired you to, and and at what point in your life did you know this is what you wanted to do?
I wasn't a kid, because like I said, we never thought little kids then, we didn't do writing, and we didn't make up stories that we wrote down. We read stories and we played with stories outside. Um, but weren't encouraged to write stories. So I had no idea. And then what I did know, like I said, is I love living in my imagination. So when I got to middle school and high school, I started working in the theater, performing on stage, because there you're stepping into a story. And that's what I would love the most, is me living the story that I'm either acting or writing and having this adventure. And I did theater all through high school and into my college years. And then I discovered I loved history and philosophy and studying the world more. So I traveled for a whole year overseas in Asia, a lot of countries, and came back. And I went to the theater one night. It's a long answer. And I went to the theater in Washington, D.C., where I was living. And I saw my husband walk on the stage, didn't know him. And he was playing Jesse James, the outlaw. And Short story fast, I married him a year later, and it was a great situation where I moved up to New York City, and I said, "Okay, now what am I going to do?" And then I started doing little jobs just to make money, and I started writing. And what I wrote at first was poetry, and I thought, "This is what I love. I love this thing with language. I love words. I love using words, and I feel so me when I'm doing it." And then um, I started thinking about children's books because, in many ways, picture books are poems. And I took some of my poetry and I sort of put it into a picture book form. And shared it with a friend, and she shared it with her book agent. And the book agent said he would like to talk to me. And then the next thing you knew, I started writing my first serious children's book. But that was 10 years before I started Magic Treehouse. So I wrote a lot of different kind of books before I finally got that call that maybe I should think of writing a series. So I came to writing, like as I say, through the back door. It wasn't something I studied. It wasn't something I thought all my life, oh, I'm going to be a writer. It was something that fell upon me, and then I knew I was home, that I'd found what I was looking for.
That's beautiful, that feeling of finding home, and your whole kind of life and interests and love led you in that direction. And a
Yeah.
follow up to that question from Skylar in Miss Pennington's class: what was the first book that you wrote 10 years prior to the Magic Treehouse series?
Well, it's a very sad book, so I never wanted any kids who read Treehouse to read it because it was, based on I had helped a friend judge a children's writing contest, and I had read hundreds and thousands of essays from children, and the subject was something that brought their family closer together. My friend worked for Scholastic Magazine, and this was a contest she was involved with. And I read all these incredibly sad, poignant, beautiful one page essays by 9 to 11-year-old kids. And suddenly I just started thinking like that they were writing and thinking. And I just started pouring out my heart in a story that is no longer available, as far as I know, called Run, Run as Fast as You Can. And it's about a girl whose brother is dying. And my brother is alive and well and was just here with me for a whole week. So he's always wondered why I killed him off in my first book. But it was such a sad story. And I think weirdly that got it immediate attention, and it was published. And then from then on, I knew I could do this for a living. So I wrote three more young adult novels. That was a young adult novel. And then I moved on to fairy tales and mythology and mysteries and biographies. I thought children's books was just the greatest field to ever be in because there's so many possibilities of what you can write about.
Incredible, amazing. Another question from Carolina in Miss Greathouse's class: what was your favorite book to write? You've covered so many genres. Do you have a favorite? Does one stand out to you? You said children's books are fun because they can take you anywhere. Or is it too hard
Yeah,
to answer? They each have their own special something.
they're all very different, except Treehouse has that strong similarity. In Treehouse, probably of the Treehouse books, my favorite is the most challenging. It's almost let's see, four times longer than these books. It's um, it's a special edition called World at War 1944, and it actually takes place in World War II. And Jack and Annie go to France and work with the French fighters in France to help rescue some children who are in danger. So I loved writing that book. It took a whole year to research and write, but it was probably of all of them the most satisfying one to write. It came out originally as Danger in the Darkest Hour. And then when it went to paperback, I said to my editor, I think they might not always know it's about World War II. So kids who are interested in that war wouldn't know. So then it kind of rhymed and it was a time thing, World at War 1944. It takes place uh, the week of D-Day in France.
I'll have to get that one. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. Mm.
Another great question. They're all amazing questions. We're up to 22 pages of questions now. From Miss Greathouse's class. Who was your biggest inspiration when you were growing up? Like teacher wise or other greatest inspiration and influence? The person who believed in you the most and encouraged you to never give up, especially when things got hard for you.
Well, I was so lucky. I told you I had great brothers, but I had a great older sister, Natalie. And I thought Natalie just walked on water. She was so admired by me, and I loved everything she said and did, and I tried to copy her. She was a great older sister because she talked to me and gave me courage. And in third grade, I was really scared for some reason of going to the class. The teacher wasn't very friendly, and Natalie would walk me to class every day. And she did things like that for me all my life when I was growing up. So definitely the answer is easy. Natalie Pope Boyce. And then she came along and helped. Well, she wrote at least 40 of the nonfiction books after my husband Will started writing the Magic Treehouse musicals. He had created the nonfiction line. And then Natalie took over, and we had a great time together traveling the country and visiting bookstores and schools. So we've had a great time. And she only lives about 20 minutes from me here. So I'm very blessed with my family.
That's wonderful. Oh, to have such an incredible relationship with all of your siblings and drawing
Yeah,
inspiration from them all uh, to inform and inspire the work that you do. That's remarkable.
definitely.
A lot of people are asking, do you have a favorite book? Like outside of your writing and your series, what is your favorite book to read that you come back to?
Oh man, that's impossible. I read all the time. I read You should see all the books beside my bed, beside my reading chair, beside my desk. It's crazy. I'm a crazy reader. I I just read constantly, and I can't even name 10 favorite books. I have so many, but I hope people always will read. There's nothing like reading. And yes, I can read from my phone and my computer because I get that ability with Kindle, but I love a book. I love holding a book, opening a book. It's always an adventure. Sometimes I open to the middle of a book. I don't know why. I can't even start at the beginning, and then I might read a few pages and then I'll go back to the beginning. But it's magic. This is the real magic. It's not a treehouse. That's fun, but it's being able to read. And to me, that's the greatest talent to have in the whole world. And once you have it, use it. Read.
Books are the real magic. I think that's the bumper sticker we all need. you
Yes.
you just created the bumper sticker. Books are the real magic. It's so true. You can go anywhere with a book. And we've had a
Yeah.
lot of people writing in and asking, Mary, you mentioned growing up, you moved around and lived in many places. I would imagine you've drawn inspiration for your series from the places you've lived. Have you visited all of the places that you mention in your books? Or are there places you research and want to visit one day?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I haven't been to Mongolia. I haven't been to the Galapagos, and I've been to Monterey. I actually lived in Monterey for the Otter book, and no, I have not been to South Africa where the rhino adventure takes place. A lot of the places I write about I have been to, and some I actually got the excuse to take a trip there so I could research it. But of course, that would be Paris and London. But I did spend time in Baghdad, which is Season of the Sandstorm book takes place, and um, I've been to many Nepal and India. Wrote about those places, and yeah, I think I've been to probably about half the places in Magic Treehouse.
Wow. So you've got quite a wish list of places to visit next. Your next itineraries are all set for you.
It's true. It's absolutely, but in a weird way, Nina, I feel like I've been to all those places. Some of Jack and Annie's adventures are my own memories, and I go, "No, no, I wasn't there. I wasn't there." No, it's like it imprints on you when you write about the weather and what they're eating and what they're smelling and what they're seeing. You really live it. And so when I look back, I have to say, no, this was real. This was Magic Tree House. But it's a fun way to think.
Absolutely. To have to question like have that's
I
your
really do.
descriptive and that's incredible. Uh, Another great question from Miss Bell's class. What advice would you give to student writers?
Oh, I have good advice for you. Don't ever say you have writer's block. And if you don't know what that is, don't find out. Writer's block is the biggest joke. You don't have writer's block. If there are days when you have to write, just write. Write anything. Write poorly, write well, just write. The next day you'll make it better. And the next day you'll make it better. So my second rule is don't block yourself. Don't believe in that. Second rule is to rewrite. And I mean that. I mean rewrite. And that first book I published, it was turned in. Someone loved it, but they said you have to rewrite the whole thing. We want it longer, we want it deeper. I rewrote the whole book and then I got the contractor to publish the book. But rewriting should be fun because it's always fun to make things better. Always. And your teacher's like your editor. There's someone who may make suggestions to how you can make your story better. So listen to them. It's important. Or your parent or your sibling. People can advise you about, well, this isn't working for me because of this or that. You go back to the boards and do it again. And then the third rule I have is have fun. Be sure this is fun. It's not drudgery, it's adventure. It's imagination, it's play. So have a good time while you're working. And if you do get stuck, take a break. Just take a break. Go pet your dog. Go have a glass of water. Just take a break and come back. 9 times out of 10 the answer's right there of what you should write. You just it's sneaking up on you. So yeah, I would say those are my key pieces of advice for writers.
Those are great pieces of advice. Don't ever say writer's block. Just write, 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 and have fun. Love it. Make it sound so easy. Uh,
Yes, really. You forgot the rewrite, rewrite, rewrite,
yeah,
rewrite part.
rewrite, rewrite, rewrite. Yes, that's right. No pun intended. We many people would like to know the process when you have an idea for a new Jack and Annie adventure. How long does it take? What does that process look like from idea
Oh, that's a
inception
great
to
question.
published book?
First, I have to choose the idea, and I think the secret of the early success of this series was I asked kids for their ideas. When I visited a million schools back when, I'd ask kids to give me their ideas. And then I would also ask them to vote on the few ideas I was thinking about. And I would even take in sketches for covers and ideas for titles and ask classrooms to vote on the ideas. And it was amazing how often the vote was the same in this state and this state and that state. It didn't matter what kind of school it was. It was kids like so many of the same things. So I got those ideas a lot from kids. And then I start research once I think, okay, that's the right one. And I'll start researching and I'll spend months buried in books, the internet, videos, maybe visit some places. And I take notes. And I usually take notes in, I was going to reach for them, but they're not there. These long reporters type notebooks. And I fill one or two, I make maps. I always need a map of where my characters are. Um, Even if I like in some of the books, they're more fantasy, I have to know where everything is for myself. But I make maps and then I even have get plans for how rooms were made, like in um, the book of Louis Armstrong in New Orleans. I found a floor plan for the place that was haunted in New Orleans from in the early 1900s, and I used that map. So anyway, I love maps and I love notes. And then I sit down at my computer and I start looking at everything, and then the imagination takes over and starts making it work, and I put an outline together, and then and of course I share that with my editor, who's brilliant, and then she gives me advice, and I share it with my husband, who's brilliant. I mean, I have a lot of good helpers. And then I start to write the story. And then I get obsessed and I write the story. It takes me a few months to write the story, but it's hard to keep me away from the work. So that's sort of the way it goes. It takes a good 6 months for each book, and sometimes longer. I should tell you this because it's so cool. We're starting a new little series for Magic Treehouse called Magic Treehouse History Heroes. And I'm choosing 4 people in history. And I'm going to show you a cover drawing for one of the first person we're doing. And it's a great cover drawing. Now, I get these things that aren't covers really, but I get to look at them and think, will that be a good one? And this is the drawing. So look
Ooh,
hard creature whose head you see there.
a
That's a
lot of teeth.
real, that's a lot of teeth, and it's 200 million years old. And and it's a true story. Jack and Annie are involved with a 12-year-old girl in England in the early 1800s who found that skull. And the name of this history hero, the title is The Greatest Fossil Finder. And I'm just going to have to wait for that book. But I had fabulous time working on it. And I'm working on finishing that up right now. But that's sort of the process. And then it goes back and forth from me to my editor and the copy editors and the art department and the artist, and everybody's sort of working as a team to bring it into a book form and make it another Magic Treehouse book.
Remarkable. And I think you just answered yet another question with that answer of, are there more Jack and Annie adventures to come? And it sounds like the
Yeah,
answer is yes.
I can't stop. I mean, it's at some point someone will say, "You have to stop." Your books aren't making any more sense. I'll be so old. But but maybe not. I don't know. I'll just go as long as I have the inspiration, and as long as it's fun. I talked about fun. It has to be fun because I don't want to dread what I do every day. You in life you have to find where your joy meets what the world wants, and if you find the two, you are the luckiest person anywhere. And if you're that can be any number of things. I met a man once who was driving a bus, and I was the last person on the bus, and I was sitting in the front seat, and he told me how much he loved driving a bus, and it was his the greatest occupation he could have for himself. And I told him about me writing books, and we were exactly the same happy with what we were doing. So you just have to think about that for your life.
Incredible. I was going to ask if you had any final words for the audience. I don't know how we top that, except there's one really important question that came from Miss Brucker's class, and I think it's really important for us all to hear, given how much you love reading. It says, what do you say to a student who says, "I don't read" or "I can't read"? Maybe this could be
Well,
our last question. And
if those are two different questions, and if you say I can't read, um, there are ways people can help you read. You can take special classes, it maybe at your school, to make sure you can read. You can talk to your parents to help you, or your siblings. It's worth it. It's worth the trouble, because you want to open as many doors in your life as you possibly can, and reading is the ticket to those doors, opening them up. It's the key. So do learn to read. And if you don't like to read, all you have to do is talk to your librarian or your teacher, say, what kind of books do you think I would like to read? And you'll find something. I believe might be nonfiction. It might be a book on amazing facts about the moon. It might be a story about children in a school. somewhere there are books waiting for you that will change your life. So trust the grown-ups to help you with this, and be determined to grow in that way with reading. It's worth it.
Phenomenal. I think we'll leave it at that today. Mary, thank you so much again for your time and insight. This has just been an incredible afternoon with you. We can't thank you enough. I want to also thank everyone who joined today from all across the country. We're so happy to be together, and thanks to our longstanding partners at Penguin Random House for bringing us all together today. We
Nina,
appreciate you all. We hope you had fun. Yes. Sorry.
I'm going to say thank you to First Book, because First Book is the best organization, and it's so determined to help kids love reading. And I've been involved with you all now for 15 years, and I don't know what I would do if you weren't there, because you are hope for people. And thank you for what you all do. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Mary. We're grateful for you all, and it takes a village to instill a love of reading, and we're happy to hold hands with everyone. So thank you, and thank you to Penguin Random House for our longstanding partnership. First Book members who are on with us today, please keep an eye out on your inbox for funding towards additional Magic Tree House titles and other Penguin Random House titles, thanks to our generous partners. I hope everyone has a wonderful week and a happy Thanksgiving. And hopefully we'll see you tonight on our reading roundtable discussion. Mary will be joining us again. And we just thank you for all that you do. Thanks for being here.